Hi everyone, it's Madame Thorsberg. I am going to walk you through how to access the practice test for the grade 3 ELA Ohio State test. This will help both the teachers and the students, but feel free to use it however you find helpful. Okay, so the first thing is just how to access the practice test, and then I'm going to walk you through some of the different tools on the test, since the students will need familiarity with the tools prior to testing, and unfortunately, the students will be testing the first week that they're back. So the first thing is to just get to the website where you can access the test. And I did send a link to your emails, but the quickest way typically to do it is just to Google Ohio State tests. And it should be the first thing that comes up. If you look, it will either say at the actual web address AIR, because it's the old air test, or it might say Cambium, and it's the same thing now. Cambium purchased the AIR test, the American Institute on Research, but that doesn't really matter anyways. Okay, so it should take you to this page. And to access the practice test, you can do it from the student or the teacher end, but it's the same thing. So I say just click on the student end. And then you will get this little bicycle, and you will click on that for the practice test. So we're going to click on that. It will open a new tab. And when you do the practice test, it just signs you in as a guest. You don't actually have to type in, the students don't have to type in all of their information that they would on test day with their state ID number and all of that. And also, the teacher, you don't have to log in with your credentials, though you should practice that before administering the test to make sure your credentials do work. That's separate. I can help you with that. So you'll click sign in. And since you're just a guest user, obviously it doesn't know what grade level you want to practice. So you will select grade 3, and 4 tests will show up. Oh gosh, never mind. There are more than that. I'm just talking about English too. 6 tests will show up, and you can practice any of these. These are all just different questions that were released at various times. So you can go all the way back to the questions that were released in the spring of 2016 to the ones that were released in the spring of 2019. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick the first one, and you will click on that. Now, this is important. On the day of the test, students will not need to mess with any of the settings. There will be a settings page similar to this. Once they're logged in and are about to begin the test, they will not need to mess with anything, and that is in the script. For the practice test, I do want you, both teacher and student, if you're practicing this, I want you to scroll down and find this thing right here, the paginated stimuli, and I want you to click off on this. The practice test is, I'll just show you the difference in a little bit, but we're just going to click off, and then don't change any of the other settings, and then just go ahead and select. And scroll through this, begin test now. So the only thing we did other than select our grade level and our test was just to click off of the paginated stimuli. And this is what an air test looks like. So it is very different from a map test for the students. If you're watching this video as well, this is exceptionally different from a map test or from an iReady test. The first thing that you will probably notice is that there is on this side, there is one passage, one text, and then on this side there are questions. So it's kind of like the test is divided in half. So you will have to scroll through the reading. This, if the students don't scroll, you're going to miss a lot of the text. So there's a button in the middle to scroll down, and you will see that you are expected to read everything over here. So this is passage 1, and it's from a book called The Great Shark Mystery. And so you would start reading this, and you would keep reading. You would scroll down as you're reading, You would keep scrolling down. You're going to see there's a glossary that has a word for you and that it looks like it's the end. However, this scroll bar still scrolls down more. You're going to see there's another passage. This is very common on an AIR test or an Ohio State test for there to be more than one reading text. So you would then have to read the next one as well. This is passage 2 from The Mystery of the Hidden Painting. And you will scroll down until you have read all of that. Okay, sorry about that little pause there. My phone was ringing. Okay, so after you've read all of the excerpts in the on the left-hand side of the page, you should answer the questions. This test is different from the MAP test in that it will let you go to the next question without answering the previous one. So you have to be careful that you are selecting an answer to every question. So this one, I'll just go ahead and pick an answer. I don't know if it's right. Okay, and after you answer a question, there are 2 ways to go to the next question. Up at the top, you will see that you can just click, we're on number 1 right now, you can click on the number that says 2, the next one. That should show up like that on the test as well. But the other way to do it is over on the left-hand side in the corner, there's this little green arrow, this next button right here. So you can click that and it will take you to the next question. So those are the 2 ways to go to the next question. You will see that after you've answered a question and then you go to the next one, it's going to put these little check marks on the questions that you've answered. That doesn't mean that you got the questions correct. It just means that you answered them. So keep that in mind, okay, and still double check your answers. I want you to see here that question number 3, it says this question has 2 parts. First, answer part A, then answer part B. So here's part A, and you will have to choose one of these, and then you still have to scroll down, and then you have to answer part B. If you only answer one of these parts, you can't get the question entirely right. You will only earn some points. It will still let you go to the next question and you'll think, oh, I've answered it, but you might not have actually answered both parts. So that is really important to double check when you're done with the test. Let me click the next button. And then even though it looks like there's only 6 questions, we can click the next button. And you will see that there are more questions. I'm going to click back for a second. It just meant that there were only 6 questions for these 2 reading passages. Okay, so after numbers 1 through 6 have been answered, click next, and there are going to be more questions. Now it's expecting you to read these new passages and to scroll down to read all of this, to read the glossary, to continue reading. Here's passage 2, to read passage 2, to read all of that, and then to start answering number 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. And then after you get to 14, there may even be more questions about some more reading passages. So let's just see if we went to 14 and I clicked next. Oh, so this practice test says, no, there are no more questions on this test. There are only 14. The real test might be longer than 14 though, okay? And there is a lot of reading and you have to make sure that you have read everything, okay? There are a few other things I want to show you about this test. Up in this corner where we had the back button and the next button, there's also a save button. You don't have to ever use that, but you can if you want to. The test will automatically save your answers as you go. So for number 7, if I click B and then I go to 8. It's going to always remember that my answer for number 7 was B, but if you're worried, you can hit the save button as well, and it'll just save and refresh your test. There is a pause button. That's not going to do anything on this practice test. On the real test, it would pause if you need to use the restroom because it is a timed test. You only get 90 minutes to take it. So if your teacher says, yes, you can go to the bathroom, that's when you would click the pause button. And we'll talk about end test in a minute. There are some more tools on the right-hand side over here. There is something called masking. There's this one with the M. Let me show you what that does. If you click on that, it's going to turn it orange. Now, when I'm reading, I can like draw this little box. Oops, sorry. And then I can make the box disappear. The whole point in that box is when you click on masking and you turn it on, it kind of hides some of the reading in case you get a little distracted by seeing all of it and have a hard time keeping track of where you are. That's when you could use the masking tool. It just hides it. It's a little bit easier for your eyes to ignore what's behind the gray box, but it's not something that you have to use. And then when you want the gray box to disappear, you can just click the little X and it'll go away. And then you have to turn off the masking tool when you're done. Otherwise, it's going to keep drawing these boxes unless I click off of masking. There's also a notes button. You can click on notes and it'll bring up a notepad. And if you want to type anything in it just to help you remember for later, you can. So I could say this reading is about birds. And then I can save it and close, but that will always show up in my notes. You can also do that on scrap paper. When you take the test, you'll have just some paper with you that you could write on regular paper, so you don't have to do it here. There's also something called the line reader. This one I see a lot of students using. So you can click on the line reader and it will highlight what line you're on. So this says passage 1, when a wild, and I can click the down arrow on my computer, bird needs your help by Carolyn Combs. And then it just helps me stay on track with where I was reading. So a lot of students in the past have used the line reader tool, and you can keep using it the whole time you're reading this just to help you stay on track. And then when you're all done, you click off of the line reader. You can also zoom into the test. If it's hard to read, you can zoom in and you can zoom out. You can zoom back out. So that's helpful as well. And you'll see these little arrows right here on the text side, the left side. When you click those, it will make it bigger. So you can just focus on reading before you look at the questions. Okay. And then when you want to see the questions again, you click on those two little arrows, and then it takes you back to the questions. So some people don't like seeing the reading and the questions on the same page because it looks like a lot. Those arrows make it look a little bit more pleasing to your eyes to just focus on the text. So that is another tool you can do. And I want to show you one other thing. When you are entirely done with your test, you will click the End Test button only when you've answered everything. Now, I haven't answered everything because this is just a video for you to see. So if I click End Test, it's going to say you have clicked the End Test button. Click Yes to continue or click No to keep working on your test. I'm going to click Yes. We're going to pretend I answered everything. I'll click Yes. And it's going to show me my test had 14 questions. And the orange triangle means that I didn't answer that question. So I did answer number 1 and 2 and 3 and 7, but I didn't answer 4 or 5 or 6 or 8 or 9 or 10, all the way up through 14. So I don't want to hit this green button at the bottom that says Submit Test because I didn't answer most of them. So I can go back by clicking the number that I didn't do. So I didn't do number 4, and I can click on it, and it'll take me back to number 4 so that I can answer it. Okay, now I could answer 4, and then I can answer 5. Now remember, some of these questions are 2 parts. Watch what happens if I answer 5, just the first part. And now I click End Test. Click Yes, I want to end my test. Oh, it did work this year. It still said that I didn't finish number 5. Okay, that's good. So I didn't answer all of 5. So it's giving me an orange triangle. That's what we want, so that I can go back and say, oh, yeah, okay, I didn't answer the second part. I have to answer the second part. And then I can click Next or End Test. And I can see, okay, now did I answer all of them? Nope, I still didn't answer 6 or 8 or 9 or 10. Okay, so when you really take this test, this will show you at the end of your test before you really submit it. You want to make sure there are no orange triangles, okay? And then when there are no orange triangles, you can submit your test. And it will always ask you, are you sure you want to submit your test? And you will click yes. Okay, so the practice test is going to kind of show you a score. The real test will not show you a score right away. It won't show the teacher or the student. The scores will come later. So you could go through on the practice test and actually see how you did, which is great. So I think it is worth going back and practicing. I want to show you one other thing. If this takes us back to the beginning, okay? Let's pretend that we're logging in for the first time again. I'm just a guest user, so we're going to take the practice test. I'm going to still select 3rd grade, and I'm going to pick one of these other tests. Now, I want to show you what the test looks like. If you don't choose paginated stimuli, if you don't turn that off, I want to show you what the test looks like. I'm going to click Select and just begin test now. Okay, so rather than on the left-hand side where the reading is, rather than having the little scroll bar where we move up and down, it's going to read more like a book where you're turning pages, and there will be an arrow for you to kind of turn the page, and it will show you page by page, kind of like an e-reader or a Kindle or something. The tests, the Ohio State test, is set up like the first one I showed you. There is a way to make it look like this, to make it look like a book, but the teacher has to go in and set that up for all of the students if you prefer it this way. So that's why I said when you're taking the practice test, to make sure you just click off on the paginated stimuli so that it looks like what the kids will see on testing day. Oops, it was one back. So that's up to you. If you find that you actually prefer the look of the paginated stimuli, then you can leave it on. Just know, for the practice test, just know that the real test is going to have the scroll bar where it's up and down. So that is just a little intro into some of the tools and features of an Ohio State test using the old AIR system, the new Cambium system. And I hope that helps. And if you have any questions, please let me know.